Let's talk about why you don't like the World of Warcraft Midnight Cinematic, because we probably don't like it for the same reasons, even though it was crazy good and we had a live reaction that went something like this.
Oh, that was so worth it. Oh my god. Let's go, Paladin, bro, Paladins, baby, it's their time. They waited for 20 years.
The light is coming.
There are a couple of things that the cinematic absolutely did right, apart from the facial expressions, the animations, the battle choreography, the visuals, the lighting, and all of that stuff. That is incredible and is always incredible, and it just gets better with each individual cinematic. It's no surprise that the people who worked on the cinematic, the artists, the brains, really know what they're doing when it comes to creating the 3D models and making them feel as lifelike as possible. That is good. Another good thing that was this scene. Can we ask for our spit emote back? Because clearly Lor'themar spat in that cinematic, and we know that the spit emote has been taken away because people felt way too offended about a spit. We're gonna get to the issues of the cinematic, but if we live in a world where a /spit emoji is offending you, then we're probably never going to have a good World of Warcraft game. This is a hot take, and it has very little to do with what I'm about to talk about, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's actually very tied to what I'm about to say. But I do have to point out two more things that were absolutely incredible about the cinematic and why we had this reaction.
Oh my god. Let's go, Paladin, bro, Paladins, baby, it's their time. They waited for 20 years.
The light is coming.
Why a lot of people probably had this reaction as well, and why it started to kind of die down by the end of the cinematic. So first of all, Blood Elves. Last time we had Blood Elves of any significance in a cinematic, it was the Burning Crusade when the race was actually announced. We had some cool epic ass moments with, what was it, a Blood Elf mage and a Blood Elf priest, and it was incredible. And let's just say that among other things, they've done Blood Elves right within this cinematic, with a couple of exceptions that we'll talk about in a second. And Paladins, with the same caveat that the last time we saw Paladins be cool in any cinematic, it was back in the Burning Crusade cinematic with Morad reading from his holy book, flipping the pages, and then smack! Big badass torrent in the face with a big fat hammer of the Naru. And we haven't had anything like that since, so seeing Paladins in a cinematic was absolutely elevating for us. And last but not least, Lor'themar delivered one of the coolest lines in World of Warcraft cinematics ever, where he said this in response to Xal'atath.
Soon, I will break your world.
You can't even break one elf.
I think everybody loves Lor'themar right now, and I think you're right to love him so. But now, here come the buts, because there's quite a few, and I hope yours is sitting down. First of all, Blood Elves in a cinematic. We have to address two main things. Lor'themar's head seems awkwardly large for his body size. Now we know Blood Elves are tinier than Night Elves. However, it did feel a little bit cartoony, but that's just like a very minor but. Overall, Lor'themar's model and his character looked incredible and is definitely my favorite character of the whole cinematic. We have to talk about Liadrin's face though, which is something that definitely everybody recognized. So I have a couple of things that you might agree with and a couple of things you probably don't agree with. First of all, Liadrin not being pretty. No, Liadrin is very pretty. In terms of objective beauty, her face is probably the markers of everything that objective beauty encompasses. Facial symmetry, high cheekbones, juicy lips, tiny nose, and all of that stuff. The problem is, that's not a Blood Elfy face that we know. And I think Tomkek put out a tweet the other day fixing Liadrin's face in 3 minutes, and I do have to say, even though it doesn't look realistic, that's not the point, we're playing a fantasy game, this version of Liadrin's face definitely looks like what Blood Elves look like in the games. And if you look at this, you're like, oh yeah, that's a Blood Elf, I played that. But if you look at Liadrin's face, oh, is that like a half human, half Blood Elf type person? It definitely doesn't ring true, and these little tiny details kind of create a little doubt in the mind of the viewer, and it just tells you that something's not quite right. And one other minor but is about the paladins that show at the end. Is it the Army of the Light? Is it the Arathi? Is it both? We don't know. Either one would be cool, both of them would be cool, it's not really important to the matter at hand. As the paladins show up, there's no actual paladin-y things going on outside of their hammers glowing. I'm sorry, have you seen any paladin animations within the game? How about at least giving them wings? That is the most iconic paladin thing. It applies to all three paladin specs. It's something that everybody can recognize within the game, and it would be an awesome, oh my god, look at them, they just did it type moment. You could have them throw light hammers around to kind of showcase the judgments, and you could probably have them do like a divine storm or at least a bubble or a sacrifice to save the dying blood elves that have kept the line up until they arrived. Nothing paladin-y actually happened. They don't even really charge the battle. They just walk through it and eventually just collide with the void monstrosities, which side note, they're probably the coolest looking models in this cinematic. And that was just a little bit disappointing as a paladin enjoyer that we couldn't actually see paladins do stuff like how Varian did it in Legion when he broke the sword in two and started world wielding and cleaving around. And even in the in-game cinematics, he executed a bunch of demons and he essentially did warrior things that warriors could recognize. Sylvanas does the Banshee Wail and the Withering Fire and a bunch of other cinematics. So whenever there's an NPC that represents a certain class, they have at least maybe one ability that players can resonate with, that, oh yeah, I also do that in game, and it didn't really feel like paladins do that. They just had a glowy hammer. That doesn't really say anything. So that was just a butt of disappointment. But now we get to the actual big problems. And there are three big things that I want to talk about. First of all, the cinematic was not epic. And you might disagree with this. It was cool. It was definitely better than anything we've had since Dragonflight. Dragonflight was very mid, The War Within was mid-year, and this one was actually good, but there's no epic moment. And you have to have epic moment, we talked about this in a previous video, because you need to hype people up and give them a moment of anchor to the story, to the game, so that you can sell the game to them. An epic moment would be Shadowlands, which you might not expect, Sylvanas breaking the Helm of Domination in two. When we saw that and the sky shattering, that's an epic moment. In BFA was also when Sylvanas yelled for the Horde. And Anduin for the Alliance.
For the Alliance!
And you can say that the epic moment was also when Anduin mass resurrected the entire army. Or when Saurfang roared and everybody in the Horde charged towards the Alliance. Those were like so many epic moments in one cinematic. In Legion, it was when Varian started to remember Anduin's words, but then he realized that he has to fight for the freedom of Azeroth. He comes out of the water, splits Charlemagne in two, and starts cleaving.
Anduin, I now believe, as you do, that peace is the noblest aspiration. But to preserve it, you must be willing to fight for Azeroth!
That's an epic moment, and we can go back to almost every expansion past this, and there are epic moments.
We will never be slaves! Why do we fight? And all will burn beneath the shadow of my wings.
This one did not have an epic moment. Dragonflight did not have an epic moment in the cinematic, and The War Within didn't have an epic moment in its cinematic. And this translates into the player's feeling about the game and how it influences their, if we're going to talk about, being courteous to Blizzard, their intention of purchasing the game and playing the game when it launches so that we can just increase player base. And if you want to pull in new player, there has to be an epic moment. And there just wasn't. It was just good. It's a good fight. It's a good cinematic, but it's not epic. And that's not what most people probably expect from World of Warcraft cinematics. The second point would be, and it's tied to the first one, is the music just didn't really match. The first part of the cinematic, the music was fine, but when the army of the light, we assume, comes out of the sun, well, and the vibe of the orchestra tries to rise, you're expecting this big climax of cool ass music where everybody just starts to like push the narrative away and the good guys are starting to win some ground against the void. That just doesn't happen. The music is very soft, very soothing. It feels more like a lullaby than a war song.
The Sunwell will not fall!
Not while we draw breath.
Stand as one for the Alliance!
Listen, I understand paladins are warriors of the light, and the light soothes and calms and cleanses your soul, but this is still a war. And paladins do have a type of retribution within them, pun intended, and vengeance, and they want to turn back the tide. Their main cooldown is called Avenging Wrath. Okay, it's wrath. There was nothing wrathy about this. Super tame and super bland, and overall a little bit funny in the end. And the third and most important part has to come with a big disclaimer. You might not like what I am about to say, and I will start by saying that I'm so tired of having to make this disclaimer that if I don't make it, you won't know what it is. But I'm tired of making the disclaimer that having female characters is not a bad thing. But as a guy that plays World of Warcraft, where are the men, bro? I don't care anymore. I don't care. I just want some masculinity. I just want some manliness, because at the end of the day, it's about a war. It's about heroism. It's about glory. It's about saving. It's about protecting. Anybody can do it, sure, but there's just no male representation anymore. And after so many expansions in a row, I don't know how many times people can say this or notice this until it just rings home. Yes, Lor'themar is cool, but nothing that he does is particularly manly. It can be done by anybody. I didn't really feel like he oozes masculinity. And I don't know if he has to ooze masculinity, but we have to have that somehow in the game, because obviously this is biased, so I am probably wrong a little bit about this, but this is how I feel about the game as somebody who loved Warcraft for 20 years, as somebody who roots for pretty much every female character in the game. I feel like all of the guys cannot solve a single problem and all of the issues are resolved by female characters. It's not inherently wrong, and this is the last time I'm saying this because this is so stupid and I don't want to say this anymore, but it just doesn't feel like I belong in this story. It doesn't feel like this talks to me, and I'm pretty sure this has to do with a lot of people as well. Whether you like to admit it or not, the WoW player base is primarily male. Would be nice to be 50-50, would be an interesting game, but that's just not how it is. Can you name the coolest male characters that have done anything significant of heroism or glory or valor in the last couple of expansions? Because I'm thinking that Lor'themar had to fight Xal'atath, a representation of Void that is clearly represented or expressed through female characteristics, has had to be saved by Liadrin, where Liadrin had to do something that he didn't agree with, pray to the light, and he didn't think that that was the right thing, but he got proven wrong by Liadrin, by her doing something he did not agree with. And previous to this, we had the Manaforge raid, which, spoiler alert, the only male character in the entire Manaforge story was Locust Walker that died and got consumed by Xal'atath. Previous to this, we had Undermine, which was all just goblins. Listen, if this gets a pass, this is a very, very weak pass. Previous to this, Khadgar, the male model of mages everywhere and the peak of moral decisions and rejecting power for the sake of the world because he didn't want to be the guardian of Tirisfal following up Medivh, he got saved by Illyria. He got dicked by Xal'atath and he's just an old man in a wheelchair now. Anduin had to be saved in repeated times by Farron and Illyria. Turalyon is nowhere to be seen. Arathor is nowhere to be seen. Illyria is spearheading all of the fight against the Void. Okay, cool. What is Thrall doing? Thrall is just talking about some peace agreement between the Magar orcs and the Arathi humans. He travels with Jaina to the Arathi Highlands. He just happens to be the only one that gets ambushed and poisoned and almost dies. I swear to God, the males in World of Warcraft are just a bunch of weak representations of what masculinity is supposed to be. I honestly don't think whoever's writing, because I'm not gonna, say everybody's like this, but I honestly don't think that anybody at Blizzard knows how to write male characters anymore. And no matter how you feel about that, for some players, myself included, Marcelian included, that just doesn't resonate with what we would like to see in a story and in a game. I don't want this to be a sausage fest, that's just boring, but this is not it, man. And I don't know how many more expansions we can have of this where we just feel like girl power and girl boss everywhere. I don't know what you think. You let us know in the comment section down below. But I would imagine this is probably why you don't like the cinematic. This is definitely why we don't like the cinematic. Some little core parts of this whole thing just doesn't feel like they resonate with what World of Warcraft is really about. There are really cool things coming in Midnight, and you can check our video where we reveal everything that has been announced so far about Midnight, and it's still looking to be like a really fun expansion. So see if that's enough to get you going.